Hello everyone. We're back for another episode of What Are You? Episode 6. Last week we talked about hair, and we kind of ran out of time of like all the things that we wanted to talk about with hair, which is a good and bad thing.
Yeah.
That just means we'll have to continue it in the future. But today's episode is You're Not Really Like Them / Colorism. I'm gonna apologize right now. I am not feeling too hot, so if I sound a little stuffy, that is why.
We're definitely in our midterms week,
Oh,
so
yes.
I'm praying for everybody who's doing midterms right now, who's trying their best,
Yeah, good
making
luck.
things happen.
Drink coffee, drink tea.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. And I'm sure people love to hear the little bumps.
Yeah. I'm trying here. Doing my best. But yeah. I guess basically what we're talking about when we say the statements like you're not really like them is something that I can apply to for my younger age / my personal life now, of just being like, oh, you're not that black, or you're not that Latino. Like just hearing those kind of statements and being like, when did we make the unwritten rule book of what level system we are as our identities? And definitely at my last, university that I went to, I did kind of get the, oh, you're not black or whatever. And I was like, but I still listen to the same music.
I am.
Yeah, I am, so I don't know where I need to prove myself to or whom I need to prove myself to, because I will not / don't care.
Right.
Yeah,
no, I definitely had very similar experiences, especially once I moved to a more predominantly white neighborhood. People being like, oh, you speak so well. I literally had a student, like as if I'm older than them, my peer, I guess, say like, oh, well, you don't really speak like that. And I was like, what do you mean I don't speak like them, and who are you? And I knew exactly who she was referring to.
Yeah.
I was also like 12 years old though, so I didn't really, that's a microaggression, but I didn't know that was a microaggression at the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've definitely had people being like, oh, you speak white, or you don't really look like them, or you don't really hang out like them, or like people being like, oh, you don't speak Spanish, so you're not really Mexican.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a lot of people also that were like, you could only be like half offended from this.
What? It's like, alright, then I'm a half punch you. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like, you're gonna feel like half of it, but don't worry. You're only gonna feel half that.
Right.
And these are coming from folks that only identify as like monoracial, right?
Yeah,
Who are saying these certain statements to you.
For sure.
Yeah, usually. I can't recollect any. There might have been someone who might have been mixed, but maybe it was like multi-ethnic or something.
Yeah.
And so.
Definitely from my perspective, or like my past, I definitely remember people like monoracial identity, like choosing which side I should be on, and me being like, why not both? / who the hell are you? Like,
right.
I got just very, very upset, and I'm just like, usually I'm like the person who just doesn't, go into conflicts, or I'm very happy-go-lucky, and so whenever I get those like statements, I always get irked. Like my eyes start switching, and I'm like, okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's like I will continue on my day as the sin of my like identity, like whatever. Like it's, I don't know. It definitely does invoke like a annoyance and a frustration, because like I can't change my identity, nor would I want to. And definitely like to any viewer like listening out there who does identify with multiple identities, like definitely know that there are periods in your life that someone's gonna come in and be like, oh, you don't fit this standard, therefore you're not.
Right. Absolutely. It's always this like having to prove yourself. Type of thing.
Even though your experiences and even just being multiracial or biracial, it should be, you don't need validation from somebody else, Sure. It's already proven fact that you yourself should be like a definition of being multiracial, biracial, and celebrating your cultures both together, right?
Yeah.
I just think that these statements, whoever is saying it, is a way of dehumanizing
Absolutely.
these identities, which
Yeah.
is not right, and it needs to shift into rehumanizing statements, or just having conversations, you know?
Oh yeah, for sure.
And I still believe that we're still at that stage where we're still dehumanizing folks like you two.
Yeah, and I think we start like as early as like school, elementary age.
I would honestly say school.
If
Yes.
anyone remembers like the standardized testing that you would have to take for like math or reading, in Virginia we called it like the SOLs, like the I don't know why, but it was just SOLs.
That's how everyone felt.
Yeah. And so like when you started the test, they would give you a form, they would put your like first name, last name, social, because I remember that as an 8-year-old. And they also like have these little bubbles of like, what are you?
Yeah.
Like literally.
Yeah.
And just you had to fill in one bubble. And I looked at my teacher, like just sweating. I was like, I don't know. Senora.
Please.
Yeah, and they're like, no, just put in that one. And I was like,
Okay.
it just felt like weird, because
Yeah.
I wanted to put in both. And then the next year, they told me to do the opposite and put in African American. And I
To
was
balance it out.
Yeah. And then each year, I just switched it up. And it just felt really weird and awkward, because it's like I didn't want to fully claim one identity
Right.
over the other.
And it's so crazy that we even talk about that, because it definitely was in 2000 when it was supposed to be, well, like the US Census Bureau recognized people who had more than one race or ethnicity, but it took years and years
Wow.
later for it to be like everywhere. Like I just took a test that only had, not a academic test, it was like something for like clothes or something like that, but I could only choose one race. Yeah. And so like because I remember being in elementary school as well, and like only being able to check off one, and like after a while I kept checking off other and just writing in both because I didn't know what to do, but the other box is not always there,
Yeah.
which is interesting as well. So like when it wasn't, I was like, all right, who am I? And I would almost, it's kind of crazy because I would almost assess it of like who's the least in the room.
Yeah. That's crazy.
I was in elementary school analyzing this.
Doing these like meta-analysis while taking this test on whether you knew how to read Of Mice and Men or
Right.
like Mr. Frog and Toad. Like
Yeah.
it's insane that most people would think like, oh, this is an easy choice for you, but there's so much more to it that
Right.
like, as a child thinking this, like it's insane.
Yeah. So I think this is a good leeway to go into colorism, mainly because this isn't something that just affects mixed identity people. This is global.
This goes,
Yeah.
goes into the deep woven,
Mm-hmm.
standards that most races,
Right.
identities have within each other.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is something that we've talked about outside of this podcast as well, as we've experienced colorism here. Like all of us, like Chelsea, Ray, myself, Satiri, have all talked about our own experiences within our own communities regarding colorism, because it's very prevalent, and if you've been asleep, I don't know how you haven't been able to like tell, like inner society. Obviously, like just this like everything is in this white standard.
Yes.
And they're like, we're making shifts, we're making changes, but then it's someone who looks more like myself, or who's light skin tone, who looks a little bit more mixed, and then there's still not representation of anyone who is like a darker skin tone.
Yeah.
And that's like global, like that's not, like, I'm not even talking about someone who is black or African American or African. I'm talking about like in all cultures, like people who are Dominican, people who are Cuban, people from Cambodia, people from everywhere,
Yeah.
literally everywhere. And so we've all faced things like that. I mean, I'm trying to think, I get a lot of the, it's interesting because like on my Mexican side of my family, everyone is very like light skinned.
Yeah.
And I'm not. Well, let me rephrase that. They're all very fair skinned, so like almost like white-ish skin.
Yeah.
And I'm light skinned. My dad is a bit darker than I am, and my mom is like white passing. And so I get light skinned, so I'm too dark for them. But then I go into other communities and they're like, oh no, you're light skinned. So you have different privileges because you're light skinned
Yeah.
of being the pretty, whatever, ideal, like mixed person and things like that.
Yeah.
But and it's crazy because you experience like ugliness from both sides of
Yeah.
being like, you are this. But I also like can't shit on them for that because I also know that I have a very like, I don't want to say easier experience, but I don't face the same things that people that have darker skin tone do.
Correct.
I've never gotten the you're pretty for a dark skinned girl.
Yes. Dang, we should run. I need someone who can run, but she's probably in school teaching little babies. But yeah, no, I definitely do understand just the sentiment of being lighter skinned because I'm the same way. Like, my mom is very far, like, fair skinned, just like passing as white, and then my dad is dark skinned. And I don't know, I had this conversation with my dad actually in New York, because that's where he lives right now. And like half the time he would pass as a dark skinned like black man, and then half the time he'd like go to bodegas and start speaking Spanish, and everyone would go, whoa, 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 you know, and like it would restore.
Right.
And he was like, what more? And he's like, I don't even need to ask this. I'm old. I don't even care.
I'm gonna go.
He's like, I'm just gonna buy my stuff and go. And like, it definitely does kind of put the, you know, the other layer of privilege that I still have, being lighter skinned. Even though there's like just, again, like the half, literally, the
Right.
half like privilege of just being lighter skinned but being of color.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a whole other thing.
So it's just like a layer of, you know, I'm a male, of color, but light skinned. And it's just like, alright, so you're not having that too bad of a life. And it's like, no, like,
It's
yeah.
not. First of all, it's not a competition.
It's not.
Yes.
And I think that's where a lot of people do kind of have that, like, you know, they understand privilege and they try to calculate how much they should feel bad or how much, like,
Yep.
you know, and it's not that. It's listening to someone's life story and listening to the, you know, struggles and resiliency they've had and not about privilege.
Yeah. And I think just paying attention to the way people say, I understand how you feel because you don't have the same struggles as me.
Yeah.
And trying to shift statements to like, your experiences are validated and they are different from mine. Your struggles are different from mine. And so, like, bringing that knowledge to me who has never, like, you know, experienced, I'm not a black, mixed Hispanic man of color, right?
Yeah.
But I'm understanding from you speaking it to me.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, no,
But, you know,
yeah.
and then in terms of my experience, I'm very light for my kind.
Yeah.
And I get a lot from the OGs from both my parents' side that they tell me to like, oh, you should become a model, be a hand model or whatever model, right?
I'm like looking at my study.
Am I good enough?
I'm very
My
like,
nubs. Like up ahead.
fair skin, and even my sisters tell me too, like when we take pictures, like I come off as like the most lightest skin tone color,
Yeah.
you know, sibling, and everybody favors me over all the dark skinned siblings. And I'm like, that's messed up, that they shouldn't even think that way.
Yeah.
It involves a lot of having me to educate the OGs
Yeah.
and my people about you can't say those certain things and that dark skinned folks are still beautiful. And I always try to advocate, you know, saying darker skin is beautiful skin, you know?
Yeah.
But there's just so much, there's still so much attention towards light skinned folks, you know,
Yeah.
in the beauty industry, in the media. But then how do we navigate through those spaces, right?
Yeah.
It's just creating awareness and advocating. That's a lot of work, but it's the needed work that needs to be done, right?
Yeah.
But it can't be done from dark-skinned folks. It also needs to be involved with light-skinned folks too.
Yeah.
Right.
You know.
Even in I remember when the movie Us came out that Jordan Peele directed, like, it was such a big deal that it was like 2 dark-skinned parents with 2 dark-skinned children, because there have been many times where they've just like thrown in a light-skinned child out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And they're like, I don't know
What's
how
going on?
she got here.
You know, like, yeah.
I wonder if there's something in the family.
Yeah.
That she went. But that was like a huge deal. I remember people being like so happy that it was like a family that actually looked like each other, and I like. And that's where the privilege comes into place, because I didn't notice that, but I would definitely notice if there were girls or guys or whoever they may be in TV shows that looked more like me.
Yeah.
Of course, I paid attention to that more. It wasn't a norm for me to see people who look like me all the time, but I definitely see way more people who look like me now than I did in the past, but still like a lack of people who are darker skin tones, which like, of course I was going to bring this back to Rihanna because she's everything, but like, that's why Fenty Beauty was such a huge, big deal.
Yeah.
Like 40 different shades, girl, from the palest of the pale to the darkest of the dark. I was like, whoa! And like people like, not just that, but people understanding like undertones with it too, because there's a lot of like dark foundation and things like that would come out, but you would look gray after you put this foundation on, because you don't have the right undertones. They have like too cool, I think.
Yeah.
And or it would be too red or anything like that. And so like even when people did make that, they would have like 3 shades for deep tones, and they would only be able to fit whoever fit those 3 tones, which is like a small percentage of people.
Yeah.
And so yeah, man, it's
Fenty Beauty stepping up.
Yeah.
Where are y'all other beauty products?
I know, everyone's
What are you
like,
doing?
yeah.
Let's get it altered.
Right, and that's the thing. Like people were like, "Well, she didn't invent this." I'm like, "You're correct. Rihanna did not invent darker skin tone and like having skin tones for everyone, but she basically perfected it.
Yeah.
That's the difference. And she added more skin tone, so it's not 40 anymore. I think it's like 48.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, 48 different foundation shades, and now she has it in matte and hydration. Get out of here! Come
Look at
on.
Queen. Look at the queen.
I know.
She's pushing the game.
Yeah.
And it's leaving everyone in this, position where they need to do work.
Yes.
Right.
And I think like,
You know?
where we see like arguments or like a cutoff to arguments is like, talking to people of monoracial like white privilege, and going into that and just being like, all right, I'm gonna talk to this person, and that's it. No, it's like, it kind of goes into the question of like, what's easier to do, like talk about your privilege with a white person or talk about a person of your same identity, but you're different skin tone.
Yep.
And I think it's harder to talk about someone of your same identity, because even though they're like, oh yeah, like whatever, they still don't understand that even though like you're still the same identity, you have different
Absolutely.
opportunities, privileges,
Experiences.
of just being just that simple, phenotype
Right.
melanin.
It's one of those things that and Linda Duran, who used to work for Student Life, who we all miss so much. But she was very, I know, are you listening? But one of the things that she would always say is like, once you see this, you can't unsee it. And so like, colorism was one of those things that like, as soon as it got pointed out, like I would pay attention for like advertisements, especially like commercials and things like that. I'm like, okay, who do they have in here? And like, of course, like it is gonna be majority white, but then even like other channels, like if you go to Telemundo, even fair skin, blonde hair, and I'm just like, I don't have any aunts that have naturally blonde hair. I'm not saying they don't exist,
but they're really putting that out in the front.
Right, and that standard of beauty, and like just even recognizing that, which is crazy because like in our society, what people associate with Mexican is that darker skin tone.
Yeah.
And like you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I was gonna say something.
You know, darker skin tone, sombrero, you know, they see that and just like associate that with criminal.
Which is why it's so surprising for them when they see someone who is of lighter skin tone that is more white passing,
Yeah.
and they're like, "Oh, I'm Mexican," and they're like, "What?
Yeah.
You are?
You know.
Are you like the lightest one in your family?" And they're like, "No, like
Yeah.
everyone in my family, like people don't understand it's like a regional thing as well." Like,
Yeah. And it goes beyond just like different regions, and like I think the worst case I've heard is like I don't know if it was in Puerto Rico, either Puerto Rico or Ghana, like two distinctly different countries, but their solution, air quotes, that they're trying to do is bleach skin.
Oh, that's Nigeria.
Nigeria, there you go.
Nigeria.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No.
But yeah, they're trying to bleach skin so that you can get a fairer skin.
But people look sick when they do
look,
that.
it's so bad, you know?
But that's the standard.
That's a standard, that's what they're trying to go for, and you're like, you're really not gonna have this conversation about
Yeah.
colorism, but would burn your skin
Right.
with bleach, and you're like,
And that was a big debate with Black China, especially when she came out with her skin bleaching stuff, because she did a release in Laos, or is that what? No, Lagos.
Lagos.
Lagos,
Yeah.
Nigeria,
Yeah.
which it's, and like my partner who's Nigerian was pissed when he heard about that, because he's like, come on, he was like, it's so big there already, and like they're just feeding into it.
Exactly.
And so,
You know, if people
yeah.
don't understand like how dangerous it is, it's like it gives you burns.
Oh, yeah.
Like it is
You are
burns.
bleaching. You are using a chemical that you use to clean your bathroom
on your skin.
on your skin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If Alma didn't emphasize that enough, like
I know, I had to step back from
Yeah.
the mic because I was getting heated.
it's a pretty dangerous thing to do, and
Yeah.
just to do it just to achieve the standard of beauty is just really unfortunate that we see the world trying to look towards this standard of
Mhm.
you know just beauty, and it's just like, come on, like definitely understand who you are identity wise, and definitely understand that like your skin is your skin. You gotta love it, you gotta cherish it, you gotta moisturize it, because if you're gonna get ashy
Especially in
it's
Colorado.
yeah.
Especially in Colorado.
Like, yeah, you know, but just ultimately loving yourself and being able to have that conversation of how in your identity you place and the struggles you've had to go through within your identity is such a harder struggle, I feel like, than identifying how my struggle is different from, you know, a typical white man. Because I can do that easy. I can be like,
Right.
you know, I can be like, I haven't gone to the best school, I hadn't had like the best lunches, my mom or my parents didn't give me like the best opportunities than this white kid. But in the Latino sense, I wasn't able to like enjoy myself in parties, I wasn't able to like, you know, have that kind of like, you know, squad or whatever. I wasn't able to be comfortable in people's houses when I spoke Spanish to them, just because I had in the back of my mind of like, you're not good enough, or like, you're not speaking this, or, you know, no puede hacer, you know, like all these little things that like kind of just ticked away, you know, but I was able to, you know, go to college, I was able to translate for my mother, I was able to like help her get her house, which was like such a white fantasy that she had, but she
Right.
always,
Criminal, right?
yeah.
And then it made me just think about the dirty Asians that people like to say, the Filipinos or all the other Asians that are dark skinned. That's still used a lot
Yes.
in our communities, and especially in ours too. But you know, it's like having them to say, you know, stop, like that's wrong,
Yeah.
and then educating them. It's a lot of labor.
Yeah.
But you know, like even just seeing that, those statements being embedded in my community, it's like I wonder if we look at other regions too. It's like, what are some statements or things that people associate with being dark skinned,
Yeah.
and like what are people doing now to shift that conversation? You know.
I know like a very common thing that happens is family members being like, you should marry someone that is white so that you can have lighter skin
Yeah.
children.
That's exactly what my mom definitely has pushed onto me, if not trying to find a lighter skinned Latina girl, which, by the way, still single. We always do this every episode. This is so stupid, but you know, definitely like that's where I'll stop my mom and be like, Mom, I can date whoever I want, whenever I want.
I was just about to say, I was like, just to clarify, like, that's not
Yeah.
exactly who he's looking for.
Yeah, no,
He is
no.
looking for anyone and everyone, ladies.
Exactly. I'm just a loving man.
He's a Pisces. So.
But yeah, you know, I've always had these conversations with my mom, and I'm like, Mom, like, whoever I decide, like, you gotta be happy of whoever I love, and whoever I decide. And I think for the viewers out there, like, they need to understand, like, you know, one, to love yourself and your identity or identities, and two, to have that conversation with someone of your identity to figure out, like, yo, are we having these same kind of problems? Most likely, it will be yes.
Yeah.
Actually, 100% it's gonna be yes.
Yeah.
And to discover where you lie in all this and what you can do to advocate for not only yourself but for others who are like-minded. Yeah.
I couldn't have wrapped that up better myself.
Right.
So, thank you, Ray. Alright.
I can't believe we got that on camera, but whatever. It's fine.
So, we have just finished our 6th episode of What Are You Today? Does anyone know what the episode is next week?
No.
We will let y'all know. If anything, I kind of do want to touch up on the Democratic debate that just happened last night. Next week, just to kind of give y'all like a little, just thoughts in your mind about, you know, voting pretty soon. You know what I'm saying? So I'll probably go on to that next episode just for like a little bit.
We'll be having an episode about the debate and the election and all of that once that does happen. So
Yes.
that's also coming up soon. But yeah, Ray's very much on top of this stuff.
Yeah.
All right.
So yeah, no, thank you for joining us on another episode of
What Are You?